She had always felt a strange connection to music. Even as a little girl, the sound of a piano made her heart beat faster, and she would close her eyes and imagine stories hidden in the notes. Life had led her to the convent, a quiet place where every day was structured with prayer, work, and devotion. She was devoted, truly devoted, yet there was a part of her that longed for the piano, for the way her fingers could dance across the keys and bring a melody to life. The convent was peaceful, and she liked the calmness of it, but sometimes the silence felt heavy. She would walk through the halls and hear the distant birds outside, wishing she could play a tune that matched their freedom. There was an old piano in the main hall, tucked into a corner and covered with a dusty cloth. It was not used often. Most of the sisters had no interest in music, and those who did would play quietly, as if music itself were a secret pleasure to be hidden. She would pass by it every day, and each time her heart would leap. She imagined the sound it could make, even though she had never played on it in the open. She began sneaking small touches on the piano when no one was around. Her hands were timid at first, testing the keys, finding the notes she remembered from the melodies she had learned in her childhood. Slowly, she began to play simple tunes, letting the music fill the empty hall. She felt alive in those moments. The notes seemed to carry her worries away, as if each sound were a small prayer of its own. She practiced quietly, careful not to make a sound that might draw attention. As the weeks passed, she grew bolder. Her fingers learned to move with confidence, and she discovered new songs hidden in her memory. The piano seemed to welcome her touch, even if it was slightly out of tune and some keys stuck. She would spend hours discovering how to coax the sweetest sounds from it, imagining a small audience of invisible listeners who applauded at every piece. It became her secret world, a place where her spirit could breathe and where she could feel a joy that she could not find in the structured days of the convent. She knew, however, that this joy came with a risk. The convent had rules, and indulgence in personal pleasure was frowned upon. Music was considered acceptable only if it was part of worship, and even then, it was meant to be humble and brief. Her secret playing went against the unspoken rules, and she was aware of the consequences if she were caught. Still, the pull of the piano was stronger than her fear. Every note she played reminded her of a world beyond the convent walls, of freedom and self-expression. One day, while practicing a melody she had composed herself, she felt a presence behind her. She turned quickly, fearing she had been discovered. To her relief, it was an elderly sister who had quietly approached. She had watched her for a few moments, listening to the music with a gentle smile. "You have a gift," the elder sister whispered. "Do not hide it. Music is a gift from God, too. It is not wrong to cherish it." Her heart soared at the words. For the first time, she felt that her passion was recognized, that it was not a crime to feel alive when playing the piano. The elder sister encouraged her to continue, but with caution, reminding her that they must respect the rules of the convent while finding moments to nurture her talent. She left with a quiet blessing, and the young woman felt as if a weight had lifted from her shoulders. From that day on, she practiced with renewed determination. She memorized new pieces, learned how to express different emotions through the music, and discovered that even in silence, the memory of the notes could comfort her. She would sometimes hum melodies as she went about her daily chores, letting the music flow through her without anyone noticing. Her connection to the piano became deeper, almost spiritual, as if each note she played was a conversation with her inner self and with God. Her reputation among the other sisters grew slowly, not for her music, but for her devotion and dedication. She carried herself with humility and diligence, ensuring that her secret passion did not interfere with her duties. Yet those who saw her smile or the sparkle in her eyes when she returned from the hall could sense a quiet joy that was not entirely explained. It was as if a hidden light shone within her, one that only a few could glimpse. She often imagined performing in front of people, though she knew it might never happen. She dreamed of sharing her music with others, feeling the notes ripple through the air and touch hearts. But the convent rules were clear. Public performances were forbidden, especially for something considered personal indulgence. The thought of defying those rules filled her with both fear and longing. she would sometimes lie awake at night, listening to the wind outside and wonder if her music would ever reach beyond the walls of the convent. Despite the restrictions, she continued to grow as a musician. She learned to play with emotion, understanding that music could speak what words could not. Every melody she played was a reflection of her inner world, a mixture of hope, devotion, and quiet rebellion. She found ways to express joy, sorrow, and longing, and each piece seemed to tell a story, even if no one else heard it. She began composing her own music, delicate pieces inspired by the beauty of the world outside, the kindness she saw in the sisters, and the dreams she carried silently. Her secret practice sessions became the most important part of her day. She would rise early, before the rest of the convent, and play as the first light of dawn filled the hall. Sometimes she would stay late, when the night was quiet and the stars shone through the windows. In those moments, she felt truly alive, connected to something greater than herself. The piano became not just an instrument, but a companion, a friend who understood her in a way no one else could. She began to notice small changes in herself. She felt more confident, more certain of her purpose. The music had given her strength and patience, and even the most difficult tasks in the convent felt lighter when accompanied by a melody in her mind. She learned to listen deeply, not just to music, but to people, to the subtle needs of those around her. Her heart grew more open, her spirit more compassionate, and she realized that her music was not just for herself, but could one day bring comfort to others. Yet, the fear of being caught never fully left her. She knew the rules could not be ignored forever. Each time she played, there was a tension, a sense that discovery could happen at any moment. But the joy of creating music outweighed the fear. She found ways to be discreet, to practice softly, and to keep her compositions in her mind before committing them to the piano. Each successful session was a small triumph, a proof that passion and discipline could coexist. She began to form a vision for the future, though it was vague and uncertain. Perhaps one day she could perform publicly, share her music with people who would be moved by it. Perhaps she could teach others, passing on the gift she had nurtured in secret. The thought filled her with hope, and even though she knew the path would be difficult, it gave her a sense of purpose beyond the daily routines of the convent. As months passed, her skill continued to grow. She could play complex pieces with ease, and her compositions became more intricate and expressive. She experimented with rhythms and harmonies, exploring new sounds and emotions. The old piano, once neglected, now sang under her touch, each note a testament to her dedication and love for music. The dusty corners of the hall seemed to glow with the energy she brought, and even the quietest moments were filled with invisible melodies. She understood that her journey was just beginning. The piano had opened a door to a world she had never known, a world of creativity, emotion, and connection. She realized that her talent was not something to hide in shame, but a gift to nurture and share when the time was right, when though she did not yet know how or when she would be allowed to perform. She felt a deep certainty that her music would one day be heard. In those early years, before any recognition or performance, she discovered the true power of music. It could lift her spirit, heal her heart, and give her a voice when words were not enough. It connected her to the world outside, to the people she had never met, and to the divine presence she felt in every quiet moment of the convent. The piano, once denied to her, had become the center of her life, and she knew that no obstacle could ever take away the joy and freedom it brought her. She had been quietly building her confidence, and each note she played filled her with a sense of purpose she had never known before. The piano had become more than an escape, was a way to express the emotions she could not share in words. Her compositions were growing richer, more complex, and her skills more refined. It was during one of these afternoons while the sunlight streamed through the high windows of the convent hall that she made a decision. She would ask permission to perform for the small gathering of sisters and visitors who occasionally came to the convent, wanted to share the music she had nurtured for so long. Even if only for a few minutes, her hands trembled as she approached the Mother Superior. She had rehearsed her words countless times in her mind, each version trying to convey humility, devotion, and passion all at once. The older nun listened carefully as she spoke, her face unreadable. She explained her desire to play a piece she had composed to bring a little joy to those who visited and to honor God through her music. She tried to show that her request was not an act of pride, but an offering, a gift she wanted to share. The response was not what she had hoped for. The Mother Superior shook her head slowly, her expression gentle but firm. "Music is a blessing," she said, "but it must not become a distraction. Our focus here is on prayer, service, and devotion. Personal performances can lead to pride and distraction. It is not appropriate." Her heart sank. She had imagined this moment for so long, dreaming that her talent would be seen and appreciated. And now it felt like the door had been closed in front of her. She bowed her head, trying to hide the sting of disappointment. "I understand," she whispered, though inside a storm of emotion brewed. The convent rules were clear, and she could not argue without appearing disrespectful. Still, the longing in her heart refused to be silenced. The days that followed were heavy. She went about her duties with the same care and devotion as before. But each task felt a little duller, the halls a little quieter. The piano sat in its corner, still and silent, waiting for the hands that had once brought it to life. She felt a mix of sorrow and determination. Even though her request had been denied, she could not abandon her passion. The music inside her was too strong, too alive to be ignored. She began to practice in secret, more carefully than ever. She chose moments when the convent was still, the world outside quiet, and the risk of being caught low. The early mornings before anyone woke and the late nights after everyone slept became her sanctuary. The piano responded to her touch as if it understood her frustration and her longing, offering solace and companionship in the silence. Each note she played was a small act of defiance, a way to keep her spirit alive despite the restrictions imposed upon her. In these secret sessions, she poured every feeling into her music. Joy, sorrow, longing, and hope all flowed through her fingers. She discovered melodies that spoke of freedom, harmonies that captured the depth of her heart, and rhythms that echoed the pulse of her dreams. Each composition was a reflection of her inner life, a story told without words, and it strengthened her resolve. She knew that one day, music would reach ears that could truly understand it. The elder sister who had once encouraged her continued to watch over her quietly. She did not interfere, but she would sometimes leave a gentle note of encouragement, praising the beauty of her compositions or reminding her to stay safe. These small gestures filled her with warmth and reminded her that her gift was not unnoticed. The secret practice sessions became more than a necessity. They became a partnership between her, the piano, and the sister who understood the power of music to heal and inspire. Despite the rejection, she began to think creatively about how she might share her music without breaking the rules outright. She considered teaching other sisters in private lessons, composing pieces for the convent choir, or even arranging music for religious ceremonies where it would be welcomed. These ideas gave her a sense of purpose and kept the flame of hope alive. She understood that patience and careful planning were as important as talent and passion. The emotional struggle within her was profound. She felt a tension between obedience and self-expression, devotion and desire. Each day was a balancing act, as she fulfilled her duties with care while secretly nurturing a world of music within her. She learned to carry the longing quietly, to let it shape her music in ways that were subtle, yet powerful. This inner conflict became a source of depth in her compositions, giving them a richness and emotional resonance that had not been there before. Sometimes, she would catch glimpses of visitors arriving at the convent, their faces curious and expectant. She imagined what it would feel like to play for them, to see their eyes light up, to hear the gasps of delight at a particularly moving passage. The vision filled her with both hope and frustration. She wanted to bring joy to others through her music, but the rules of the convent were an unyielding barrier. Each day, she wrestled with the question of how to honor her calling while remaining faithful to her vows. Her determination only grew stronger. She began to document her compositions carefully, writing them down and memorizing them so that she could play them perfectly when the opportunity arose. She experimented with different styles, drawing inspiration from nature. From the quiet moments of prayer and from the stories of saints she read about in the convent library, her music became a tapestry of experiences, woven from the threads of her daily life and her deepest emotions. In moments of solitude, she reflected on the meaning of her journey. She understood that her talent was not just for entertainment. It was a reflection of her soul, a gift that could bring comfort, inspiration, and even healing. She thought of the people outside the convent who might one day hear her music and feel a sense of peace or joy. This vision gave her strength to continue, even in the face of disappointment and denial. The piano, once a forbidden instrument, had become a silent confidant. Its keys remembered the touch of her fingers, the melodies that flowed through the hall, and the dreams that she carried quietly. Each session was a small victory, a way to assert her identity and preserve her passion. She knew that the denial she faced was not the end of her story, but merely a chapter in a longer journey that required patience, resilience, and courage. She began to notice subtle changes in her life. The other sisters, unaware of her secret practice, began to respond to her differently. They noticed her calm presence, her ability to lift the spirits of those around her, and her quiet confidence. She realized that her music, though unheard, was already influencing her behavior and her interactions with others. It was shaping her into a person of greater empathy, patience, and grace. Her dreams continued to grow bolder. She imagined herself performing in a hall filled with people, seeing their faces light up with emotion, and feeling the shared connection that music could create. She pictured herself teaching others, sharing her knowledge and passion, and inspiring a new generation to find their own voices. These dreams were distant and uncertain, but they provided a sense of direction and purpose that no denial could take away. Each day, she balanced the demands of convent life with the quiet rebellion of her music. She learned to find joy in small moments, to listen deeply to the world around her, and to express herself in ways that were subtle but meaningful. The piano became a source of strength, a reminder that even within boundaries and restrictions, the human spirit could find ways to flourish. The experience of being denied had transformed her. It had taught her patience, humility, and the importance of perseverance. It had deepened her understanding of her own desires and the ways in which she could honor them responsibly. She began to see that obstacles were not just barriers, but opportunities to grow, to refine her skills, and to prepare for the moment when she would finally be able to share her music with the world. She continued to practice in secret, each note a testament to her resilience and her unwavering passion. The denial had not silenced her. It had only strengthened her resolve. She knew that one day her music would reach ears that could appreciate it fully, not that the joy and connection it brought would be worth every moment of waiting. The piano, once a source of longing and frustration, had become a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the enduring power of dreams. Even though her request to perform had been denied, she refused to let the fire in her heart die. She had learned that rules could not stop the music that lived inside her, and she began to prepare in secret for the moment she might finally share her gift with others. Every day she would rise before dawn, when the halls were still and the world outside was quiet. She would tiptoe to the old piano and let her fingers drift over the keys, feeling the familiar thrill as each note sang out softly in the empty hall. She began to compose more deliberately now, thinking about how her music might touch someone if it were ever heard. She experimented with melodies and harmonies, trying to capture emotions she could not speak aloud. There were times when a particular sequence would not sound right. She would play it over and over, adjusting each note until it felt perfect. She learned patience through these hours of trial and error, discovering that music required not just talent, but discipline and persistence. The elder sister who had once encouraged her watched from a distance. She did not interfere, but she would occasionally leave a small note or a kind word hidden in the corner of the music sheet. These quiet messages filled her with hope and reminded her that her talent had value beyond the walls of the convent. She treasured these moments of silent support, feeling less alone in her secret endeavor. She also began to visualize her future performance. In her mind, she could see the audience, hear their reactions, and feel the energy that passed between a musician and those who listened. These imaginings gave her courage, helping her to refine her playing and to approach each practice session with purpose. She learned to anticipate how the music might feel to others, and she adjusted her expressions, timing, and dynamics accordingly. Even in solitude, she performed with intention and emotion, as if preparing for a real stage. Obstacles arose as well. The piano was old and sometimes difficult to play. Keys would stick or produce dull tones, and at times the pedals would fail. She learned to adapt, finding new ways to express herself despite these imperfections. These challenges taught her resilience and ingenuity, and she began to appreciate that beauty could emerge even from limitations. Every time she overcame a problem, she felt a small triumph that fueled her determination. She also had to navigate the constant presence of convent rules. She had to be careful about when and how she practiced, ensuring that her passion did not interfere with her duties. There were moments when she was nearly discovered, and the fear of punishment added intensity to her playing. Each successful session became a quiet victory, a reminder that her spirit could not be fully contained. She learned to balance obedience with creativity, finding freedom within boundaries. During this time, she began to teach herself more advanced techniques, drawing from memories of pieces she had once heard or read about. She experimented with dynamics, expression, and phrasing, learning how to convey emotion without words. Her fingers became more agile, her touch more sensitive, and her understanding of music deepened. She discovered that the piano could reflect not just melody, but emotion, and that her compositions could tell stories that words alone could not. The elder sister sometimes joined her in the hall, not to play, but to listen. She would sit quietly, eyes closed as the music filled the space. Her presence was comforting, a silent acknowledgement that the young woman was on the right path. These moments reinforced her belief that her talent was not a sin, but a gift meant to be cherished and shared when the time was right. It gave her courage to continue, even in secrecy. She began to develop a repertoire of pieces, some composed entirely by her, others inspired by melodies she had learned in childhood. She arranged them carefully, considering how each piece would flow into the next, how it would build emotion, and how it might touch an audience. She practiced transitioning smoothly between pieces, imagining herself performing in front of listeners who might never forget the music. Her compositions grew more sophisticated, reflecting both her technical skill and the depth of her emotions. She also practiced improvisation, learning to respond to the piano spontaneously. This allowed her to explore new sounds, to follow the music wherever it led, and to express her feelings in the moment. These improvisational sessions became a form of meditation, a way to connect with her inner self and the divine presence she felt in the quiet of the convent. The piano became more than an instrument. It became a mirror of her soul in her solitude. She began to imagine practical ways to share her music without breaking the rules. Perhaps she could play during religious ceremonies or offer her compositions for special occasions. She considered teaching music to young novices or composing pieces that the choir could perform. These ideas gave her a sense of purpose and strategy, helping her to prepare for opportunities that might one day arise. Despite her careful preparation, there were moments of doubt. She wondered if her efforts were in vain, if she would ever find an audience that could hear her music. She questioned whether the risk of being caught was worth the joy of playing. These doubts weighed heavily on her. But each time she sat at the piano and let the first note ring out, the fear would recede. The music itself reassured her, reminding her why she had begun this journey and why she could not stop. She learned to draw inspiration from the world around her. The birds outside the convent, the rustle of the trees, the changing light of dawn and duskel became elements in her compositions. She noticed small details in the lives of the sisters in the community, translating the emotions and stories she observed into melody. Her music became a reflection not only of her own feelings, but of the world she loved. A tapestry woven from observation, empathy, and imagination, she began to document her compositions carefully, ensuring that each note and rhythm was recorded. She wanted to preserve her work for the future in case the opportunity to perform ever arrived. This act of recording became a ritual, a way to honor her craft and to treat her music with respect. Each completed piece brought her a sense of accomplishment, reinforcing the belief that her dedication was meaningful. The convent, unaware of the depth of her preparation, continued its routine. She carried out her duties with care and devotion, ensuring that no one suspected the intensity of her musical work. The discipline she developed in balancing her secret passion with her responsibilities strengthened her character and gave her a sense of quiet pride. She understood that true dedication required patience, humility, careful planning. Her secret rehearsals also became a test of endurance. She played through fatigue, emotional turmoil, and occasional despair, learning to persevere even when circumstances were difficult. The piano became a companion that never judged, that responded to her touch with understanding and beauty. Each session reinforced her belief that music was a vital part of her life, a force that could guide her through challenges and illuminate her path. As the months passed, she began to feel a sense of readiness. Her skills had grown, her compositions had matured, and her confidence had strengthened. She felt that, if the opportunity arose, she could perform in a way that would move others deeply. She had prepared not just technically, but emotionally. Learning to communicate the essence of her feelings through the piano, the anticipation of that moment became a quiet but powerful motivation. Pushing her to continue refining her art, she also reflected on the purpose of her music. It was not for fame, recognition, or approval, but for the joy it brought, the connection it created, and the beauty it expressed. She understood that her music was a form of service, a way to share her heart with the world and to honor the gifts she had been given. This understanding deepened her commitment and gave her the courage to continue, even in secrecy. Through her preparation, she discovered the profound relationship between discipline and creativity. The rules and restrictions of the convent, though challenging, had forced her to find innovative ways to express herself. She learned that limitations could inspire ingenuity, and that dedication could transform obstacles into opportunities. The piano had become a teacher as well as a companion, guiding her not only in music but in life. Her vision of performing, once a distant dream, began to feel attainable. She imagined the day when her music would be heard, when the emotions she had poured into each note would touch others as deeply as they had touched her. She felt a quiet determination to make that day come, knowing that it would require patience, courage, and careful planning. Each secret rehearsal brought her closer to that goal, strengthening her resolve and her belief in the power of music in her heart. She carried the knowledge that the journey itself was as important as the destination. The hours spent at the piano, the careful preparation, the quiet determination, all were part of a process that shaped her character, refined her talent, and strengthened her spirit. She had learned to find joy and fulfillment in the act of creating, knowing that one day, her efforts would bear fruit in a performance that no one would forget. The day she had been preparing for finally arrived. Though she did not know it would come so soon, a small local festival was being held nearby. The convent had agreed to allow a few sisters to participate in welcoming the visitors. She had learned of the opportunity through a note from the elder sister, who had seen a chance for her to perform discreetly. Her heart raced with excitement and fear. This was her moment, though she would have to be careful to maintain her humility in the decorum of the convent. She arrived at the hall early, the piano waiting quietly in the corner. The room was filled with people, but she was hidden at first, behind a folding screen. She could hear the murmur of conversations, the laughter of children, and the shuffle of feet. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart thumped as she imagined the notes she would play, the melodies she had practiced for months. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of anticipation and the joy of finally being able to share her music. When the signal came, she moved to the piano, her fingers hovering above the keys for a brief moment. The hall fell silent, as if sensing the importance of what was about to happen. She closed her eyes, letting her mind quiet, and then she began. The first notes flowed softly, gentle and deliberate, filling the space with a warmth that seemed to reach every corner. She played with all the emotion she had held inside, each melody carrying her dreams, her struggles, and her hope. The audience was captivated from the very first note. People turned toward her, surprised by the beauty and depth of the music. Some closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them, while others leaned forward, eager not to miss a single note. Her fingers moved with grace and confidence, each chord resonating with emotion. The melodies were alive, telling stories of longing, courage, and quiet triumph. Even the children sat still, enchanted by the music, their faces filled with wonder. As she played, she felt a sense of liberation. The months of secret practice, the late nights, the early mornings, and the fear of being discovered, all of it had led to this moment. The music was no longer just her private world. It was a shared experience, a connection between her and every person in the room. She realized that the piano had become an extension of herself, and through it, she could speak without words, communicate feelings that words could never capture. Her compositions, carefully arranged and rehearsed, flowed seamlessly. She moved from soft, delicate passages to bold, expressive chords, guiding the audience through a journey of emotion. Each note was precise yet full of feeling, a testament to her dedication and talent. She allowed herself to be carried by the music, losing awareness of everything else, and in that moment, she felt completely free. The hall was silent except for the music, yet the impact was palpable. She could sense the energy of the audience, their attention focused entirely on her and the piano. Some had tears in their eyes, moved by the emotion she conveyed. Others sat in quiet awe, unsure how to respond to the beauty they were witnessing. Every sound she made was a bridge between herself and the listeners, as a dialogue without words that spoke to the heart. As the performance continued, she noticed a few familiar faces among the crowd. A member of the convent had quietly come to observe, and her presence filled her with a mixture of apprehension and hope. She wondered what they would think, whether they would understand the depth of her passion, or judge her for stepping beyond the convent's rules. But she chose to focus on the music, trusting that its truth would be understood. She played through her repertoire, each piece a reflection of her journey. Some were joyful and light, capturing the simplicity and beauty of life. Others were more somber, expressing longing and resilience. The audience responded instinctively, their reactions rising and falling with the music. She could feel their emotions blending with her own, creating a shared experience that was more powerful than anything she had imagined. The final piece was the one she had composed herself, the culmination of all her practice, emotion, and creativity. It began softly, almost hesitantly, and then grew in strength and confidence. Her fingers moved with precision and passion, coaxing every possible nuance from the piano. The melody rose and fell like a wave, carrying the audience with it, drawing them into a world of emotion and beauty. When the last note faded, there was a brief moment of stunned silence before the room erupted in applause. She sat at the piano, breathing heavily, overwhelmed by the response. The sound of clapping, cheering, and whispered admiration filled the hall. People came forward, some with tears in their eyes, thanking her for the music and telling her how it had touched them. She realized that her secret effort, her patience, and her dedication had created a moment that would not be forgotten. The joy in their faces reflected back to her, confirming that her gift had meaning and power. Even the member of the convent who had watched quietly stepped forward, a look of understanding and admiration on their face. There were no harsh words or reprimands, only a recognition of the talent and courage it had taken to perform. She felt a sense of relief and pride, knowing that she had honored both her gift and her devotion, finding a balance that had once seemed impossible. After the performance, she remained at the piano for a while, letting the music linger in the hall. She played soft, gentle melodies that were not rehearsed, improvising in the moment, savoring the connection she felt with the audience. Each note was a celebration of the journey she had undertaken, a testament to the perseverance, passion, quiet determination that had brought her to this point. The experience changed her. She understood that her music could reach others in profound ways, creating emotion, comfort, and inspiration. She realized that her time in secrecy, her careful preparation, and her dedication to her craft had been necessary to shape her into the musician she had become. The performance was not just a moment of recognition, but a transformation, showing her that her music could be a bridge between her inner world and the hearts of others. She returned to the convent later that day, carrying a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. The piano, once a hidden treasure, had become a voice for her soul. She understood that, while she must continue to respect the rules and duties of the convent, she had discovered a way to share her gift and touch lives. The joy and connection she felt would remain with her, a source of strength and inspiration for the days to come. That night, as she lay in her small room, she reflected on the experience. The fear and doubt that had accompanied her for so long had been replaced by confidence and hope. She had discovered that true expression required courage, patience, and faith not only in her talent, but in the power of music itself. She knew that this performance was only the beginning of a new chapter, one in which her gift could continue to grow and touch others in ways she had never imagined. She fell asleep with a smile, the melody still echoing in her mind, knowing that the piano had become more than an instrument. It was a companion, a teacher, and a bridge to the hearts of those who would listen. She had been denied once, but through perseverance, patience, and dedication, she had created a performance no one would forget. And in that realization, she felt a sense of peace and joy that would remain with her forever. The morning after her performance, she awoke with a quiet sense of satisfaction and anticipation. Though the applause and cheers had faded, the memory of the music still lingered in her mind like a gentle echo. She felt a sense of accomplishment, not just for the applause she had received, but for the courage and dedication that had led her to that moment. She had faced doubt, fear, and denial, and through persistence, she had shared a piece of her soul with the world. Word of her performance spread slowly but surely. Visitors who had attended the festival spoke of the young woman whose music had moved them deeply. They described the purity and emotion of her melodies, the way each note seemed to carry a story, and how her playing had left a lasting impression. The recognition was not immediate, but it was genuine, heartfelt, and filled with admiration. She had never sought fame or praise, yet the acknowledgement of her talent brought a quiet sense of validation and encouragement. Within the convent, the news eventually reached the Mother Superior. She had heard of the performance from others and felt a mix of concern and curiosity. Initially, she worried about the potential consequences of a sister performing outside the convent's strict guidelines. However, upon seeing the impact of the music and learning more about the care and humility with which it had been presented, her perspective began to shift. She understood that the performance had not been an act of pride, but of devotion, discipline, and love for the art. The elder sister, who had quietly encouraged her all along, spoke to the Mother Superior on her behalf. She explained the months of preparation, the care taken to ensure the performance was respectful and humble, and the joy it had brought to those who heard it. Her words painted a picture of dedication, perseverance, and integrity. Slowly, the Mother Superior began to recognize the depth of talent and character in the young woman. The music had not caused disruption, but had created connection and inspiration. A meeting was arranged, and the young musician found herself sitting before the Mother Superior and a few other sisters. She felt a mixture of nervousness and hope. The Mother Superior spoke first, acknowledging the beauty of the performance and the impact it had made. She praised the careful preparation, the humility of the presentation, and the dedication that had gone into perfecting each piece. It was a moment of recognition that carried great weight. As it came from those who had once represented boundaries and limitations, the conversation shifted to possibilities. The Mother Superior expressed that, while rules were important, there was room for talent and devotion to coexist with the responsibilities of the convent. She suggested that the young woman could teach music to other sisters, perform for small gatherings where appropriate, and contribute her compositions to ceremonies and events. The suggestion was a turning point, a sign that her dedication and courage had opened doors that once seemed closed. Her heart swelled with gratitude. The acknowledgement of her efforts and the opportunity to continue sharing her music gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her journey had been about more than a single performance. It had been about growth, patience, and the courage to follow her passion despite obstacles. The path ahead was still guided by discipline and humility, but it now included the possibility of sharing her gift in ways that could, inspire others. She began teaching the younger sisters, showing them the basics of piano and encouraging them to explore their own musical expression. She emphasized patience, practice, and the importance of finding joy in creation. The convent became a place where music was no longer hidden but nurtured, a subtle yet profound shift in the community. Her students discovered not just technique, but also the emotional power of music. Through her guidance, they learned to connect with both the instrument and their own feelings. Composing continued to be a central part of her life. She created pieces for ceremonies, special events, and quiet moments of reflection. Each composition reflected her growing experience, her understanding of emotion, and her dedication to expressing beauty with integrity. The music resonated not only within the convent, but also in the wider community, bringing comfort, inspiration, and joy to those who heard it. Her influence expanded quietly through both teaching and performance, creating a legacy that touched hearts beyond her immediate surroundings. The young woman also found personal growth in this new phase of life. She had learned resilience, the importance of perseverance, and the value of patience. The months of secret practice, the denial, and the careful preparation had shaped her character and strengthened her spirit. She understood that talent alone was not enough. It required dedication, discipline, and humility to truly shine and to serve others through one's gifts. There were still challenges. Balancing duties with teaching, composing, and performing required careful time management and focus. She remained mindful of the convent's expectations, ensuring that her activities enhanced rather than distracted from her devotion. The lessons learned during her secret practice, discipline, patience, and emotional depth continued to guide her. Each challenge was met with a calm determination, reflecting the maturity and wisdom she had gained through her journey. Her music became a source of inspiration, not only for those who listened, but also for her own continued growth. She discovered new depths of creativity and expression, exploring complex harmonies, emotional nuances, and innovative compositions. Each new piece was an opportunity to share a piece of her soul, to communicate emotions and stories in a language beyond words. The piano remained her companion, a channel for connection, reflection, and joy. Over time, her reputation as a talented and humble musician spread further. Visitors and locals spoke of the nun whose music could move hearts, and some even traveled to hear her play. Yet she remained grounded, never seeking recognition or praise. Her focus was on the music itself, the joy it brought to others, and the growth it nurtured within her. She understood that true fulfillment came not from applause, but from the act of creating and sharing beauty with sincerity and love. The impact of her journey extended beyond music. She became a role model within the convent, demonstrating that passion, discipline, and humility could coexist. Her story inspired others to pursue their own talents, to find ways to express themselves while honoring their commitments and responsibilities. The combination of courage, patience, and dedication became a quiet yet powerful lesson for the community. Looking back, she reflected on the long journey that had led to this point. The denial, the secret practice, the careful preparation, and the eventual performance had shaped her in ways she could not have imagined. She realized that each challenge had strengthened her character, deepened her understanding of music, and prepared her for the opportunities that followed. The experience had been transformative, teaching her resilience, creativity, and the importance of following one's passion with integrity. Her music continued to grow, evolving in complexity and emotional depth. She composed pieces that captured the beauty of the world, the subtle emotions of daily life, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. Each note reflected her journey, her inner life, her desire to connect with others through art. The piano became more than an instrument. It became a vehicle for communication, reflection, inspiration. She understood that her gift was not solely for herself. It was a tool to bring joy, comfort, and hope to others, to create connections and to inspire. She embraced her role as both musician and teacher, guiding others with patience, care, and humility. The convent, once a place where her talent had been restricted, became a sanctuary where music and devotion coexisted harmoniously. enriching the lives of all who were part of it. In the end, she realized that being denied the piano had not been a defeat, but a lesson. It had taught her resilience, patience, and the power of perseverance. It had strengthened her character, honed her talent, and prepared her for a life in which her music could touch others in meaningful ways. She had faced obstacles, embraced her passion in secrecy, and emerged stronger, more confident, and more compassionate. Her journey became a testament to the power of dedication, courage, and creativity. The performance that no one would forget was not just a single event, but the culmination of years of growth, patience, and unwavering commitment. Through her music, she found purpose, connection, and joy, and in sharing it, she left a lasting impact on the lives of those who heard her. She had transformed denial into opportunity, silence into song, and passion into a force that would continue to inspire for years to come.